Welcome to the Spotlight On series, where we get to sit down and speak to some of the most inspirational market leaders from some of the UK's most exciting brands. We'll learn about their careers, their challenges, and their achievements, all to inspire you to help you grow your careers. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Spotlight On, where we're joined by Rhea Fox, who's the Digital Director of Ted Baker. Super excited about this episode. We'll be diving into all things career development. So I guess, Rhea, to kick us off, tell us a little bit about your role at Ted Baker.
Sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Digital Director at Ted Baker for Europe and the UK. The UK is our biggest market. And Ted is owned by Authentic Brands Group, which is a huge holding company in the US who license brands. And then they devolved that into operating partners on the ground. So I was super excited to join Ted, brand really close to my heart. And my team is fairly extensive and keeps getting bigger. So I look after digi-trading, digi-marketing and CRM, studio, online concessions and customer services.
Quite extensive then. And roughly how many would be in that sort of total team?
So it's 50 FTEs, and then we have contractors and agencies obviously around that as well.
Okay, so quite a role then. You've had a super impressive career path as well. Your CV is littered with amazing brands. Can you tell us a little bit about your kind of like journey towards getting to the role at Ted?
Yeah, sure. So quite unusual, actually. I started life in customer insight and analytics on the agency side, which is just something I sort of fell into. I was working in an ad agency part-time when I was a student in my final year in Leeds, and they kind of said, do you want to stick around? So I did, and had a blast there, and probably spent 15 years after that in kind of customer insight roles, sort of straying every now and then into kind of more comms planning, as is the nature of things if you work in a through the line agency, and also on CRM, which is a bit of a passion point of mine. But generally speaking, had a fairly standard insight career on both agency and client side. And actually, things only really changed when I moved to eBay, where I had an amazing time. I was European Insight Director there, and had a really great relationship with much of the leadership. And at that point, I started being offered kind of opportunities to broaden my scope and do other things, which was really, I guess, pivotal for me in my career. And I guess we'll come on to touch on it, but, if you find yourself in that environment where a business believes in you and wants to try you doing other things, that's kind of gold dust. So I did that. I did a secondment as trading director there for 6 months, which was just utterly terrifying. eBay's got 22 million, or had at the time 22 million customers, billions of revenue. So real kind of in at the deep end on a trading role. And that wasn't quite for me. And I really wanted to do a marketing role, a hands-on marketing role. And with hindsight, I really should have stayed at eBay and waited for that to happen, but I couldn't quite see it happening. So at that point, I made a strategic move to Aviva. Back to general insurance, where I'd thrived before at Direct Line Group. And it was a bit of a gamble because I moved into an insight role and did that consciously, knowing that Aviva had a great reputation for moving people around between departments. And that's what happened. So after a couple of years there doing an insight role, I moved into the head of marketing role for general insurance, which again was kind of a bit of a baptism of fire. So, a big old team, 30 odd FTE, a huge budget. Was agency lead for both actually of our major relationships at agency relationships at Aviva, which was Zenith and Adam and Eve. Okay. So straight in at the deep end, and really, really great. Just a great chance to get my hands on a big meaty marketing role.
I guess there's something that we spoke about actually on the call leading up to this around, and you spoke about eBay, you spoke about Aviva, and actually one of the big things that has been super important to you is the ability to pivot within a company. And obviously you've got, as everyone would have heard, like brands that lots of people would idolize to work in, and positions within those companies that are, positions that lots of people are working towards. How important what were those opportunities early on in your career to do different roles within an organisation?
Really important, and important to me, I think. And I think, if you can think about your career, I guess it depends on what you want to do, right? So if you're an accountant and you want to be a CFO, that's pretty easy. I won't say you can do that anywhere, because it's steep. But
a lot of CFOs watching going, that's bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're in if you're in logistics and you want to become an operations director or a COO, then the path's kind of fairly linear and obvious. For me, I guess, having always had an interest in various kind of peripheral disciplines in and around marketing and insight, it was important for me to try other things, and continues to be important for me. And I think it's also benefited me. We'll talk about this, I know, later. But if one of your motivations is seniority, you've got to try a few different things. And I remember a dear friend of mine, my old boss's boss, mentor and great friend, saying to me, "Look, Rhea, if you want to be a VP in this business at eBay, you're going to have to do a stint in operations or trading." Look, that's good advice.
Yeah.
And so you do.
Throw yourself into it.
Yeah.
And I guess, speaking from experience, is it an employer's responsibility to open up opportunities for their team to, chop and change into different roles? Or actually, is there more that we can do as employees to go bang on those doors and essentially open up those opportunities for ourselves?
I'm going to be on the fence and say a bit of both. So I interviewed once for a very large household retailer where anyone would love to work. And it was for an insight role, and they asked me where I wanted to be in 5-10 years. And I said, probably, doing something a bit more in strategy or marketing. And they said, yeah, no one ever leaves insight in this business. We've been here 20 years and no one's ever left the insight department. That's not the way it works. And I thought, okay, that's honest. And I was offered the job, and they said, we'd love to offer you the job. We think you're great. We think you'll be bored.
Yeah.
But if you,
so you took it now.
And at that point, you're like, okay, good. Thanks for the candor. So I think on the employee side, it's really important to be aware when you're looking at the companies or joining companies, if the flexibility and development is important to you, and those horizontal moves that that business has got form in terms of promoting that and being open to that. Because it is a really different mindset. There's an element of risk of saying to someone, a senior manager, head of, actually, yeah, go on then, have a go. That's risky. So you've got to pick the right organisation. But I think on the employee side, it's also really important to talk about it. And again, it's feedback I've had earlier in my career from, another dear friend and mentor who said, you know what, Rhea, you miss out on things because other people have got sharper elbows and they tell us what they want. And you're kind of, well, yeah, all right. If we say go do that, you'll go, yeah, all right, then I'll give it a go, no problem. So you've got to be clear. And one of the things I try and do with all of my teams, right from kind of my directs through to the most junior members of the team, is touch base every now and then with all of them and always ask them, where do you want to be and what you're looking for? Because some of them will surprise you. You'll assume they're kind of on a linear path and you think, oh, you're a junior trading manager. And actually, like, fine, okay, can I see you in the head of role and a few steps on? And actually they'll say, actually, no, I want to go and do a stint in brand marketing, or I'm really interested in IT. And you think, okay, great, I can do something with that. So I think it's really important to put your hand up and tell people what you want if you know. And, it's really interesting about assumptions. We've just opened up a role for a studio assistant, and I've had an applicant from finance who said, actually, my parents pushed me into an accountant's role. I don't really like it. And after a few years now, he's still at junior level. I really want to do a fashion role.
Yeah, right.
You would never think that.
Yeah.
And he's going to start in a few weeks.
Perfect. I completely agree. And I guess when I'm always like looking at potential career opportunities, not for myself, but obviously when you're speaking to others, you do always say that, don't just look at the salary. You've got to evaluate the full picture, not just, you've got to look at the business itself, what they're about, whether it aligns to your values. You've got to look at, yes, salary is really important, but I always say as well that you've got to look at the manager. You've got to look at who you're going to be reporting into and what they're going to be like. Are they actually going to help progress your career? How key is mentorship for anyone within their career? And again, whose responsibility is it to find a good mentor?
This is such a hot topic, and I was talking to a couple of younger ladies last week at International Women's Day dinner, And one of them said, I'd love to have a mentor. You talk to your friends and they've met someone incredible at an event, and they've taken them under their wing, and that's, I guess, the Disney version of mentorship, that actually you're just at a conference and you say something clever, and then some great entrepreneur comes and adores you, and that's your career. I'd love to say that's happened to me or anyone I know, but it hasn't. So I think what I always say, which is not that palatable really, because it doesn't give people much ownership, I guess, but mentors find you. Okay. So that's not to say that there's not things you can do to stimulate that, and I guess I'll come on to it, but all the people I have in my life, senior people who've helped me with roles, with progression, who I know I could pick up the phone to at any point and go, do you know what, I'm in a really bad place, I need a role, I need some work experience, I need a recommendation. They find you, really. They take a shine to you, they like you, you get on with them. And it's really a reciprocal thing as well. Likewise, they'll pick up the phone, I need someone for this, or have you thought about, or do you know so-and-so, and who can you recommend? So it's very kind of symbiotic. So I guess what you can do, from my experience, to find a mentor is identify a couple of senior people in and around your world, and probably in your business, who you actually like, you respect their work style, you respect how they treat their people, and over time cultivate relationships with them. But it's not an easy fix, and it's we all want to get to we all want to get to the punchline, don't we? We want to knock on someone's door and go, "Oh, you're great. Can you mentor me, please?"
I guess it's the as you say, it's the reciprocal consideration that actually, time is finite, and obviously, whilst everyone always wants to do something to give back, then actually, there's only a certain amount of that they can do. But I think what you're saying is, make yourself available, whilst it's them that will find you. Make sure that you're visible at the very least.
Yeah, and ask what you can do for them. That's always my start point, which is, once you've found those people in your business that you respect, those leaders, make sure they know who you are. Say hi to them in the kitchen. If you've got a report that you think might be interesting, send it to them. It's just the basics of relationship building, I think.
Going back to your CV and your career history, you've had roles in lead gen companies, in e-commerce, in fashion, in insurance. You've kind of had like a very, very versatile set of experiences. How influential has that that diversity of experience been on you, and how important is it for some people to specialise on certain things, do you think?
I am a bit of a hypocrite, which I really dislike on this, because when I'm looking at CVs, and I will try and look at every single CV that is screened by HR for me, which is sometimes hundreds, and is a lot, but I think it's important to show respect to all of the applicants that you've got. So hand on heart, I would do that. But if there's someone applying for a role in our team, is my eye drawn to, have they got a fashion qualification or a marketing qualification, and have they worked for one of our competitors? Have they got 10 years in fashion? So yeah, I must admit, I get it, recruiter bias on sector, because I'm guilty of it myself, which is difficult. Equally though, do I hand on heart think I've benefited from being in multiple sectors? Hell yes. Yeah. So actually in my last job, we had an attribution model. We don't have one in the current job. I need to build one. But, having built an MMM for a really complex general insurance business, now I know I can build an attribution model from kind of micro to full bore and not worry about it in any sector. And actually, do I think every sector should have one? Yes. Yeah. So yeah, you learn and you learn, CRM at eBay is a very different beast to CRM at Aviva, but the principles are the same.
I guess, so then in terms of advice to people who are looking at maybe their next step, it's like, lean on your different experiences, but obviously always try to make them very relatable to the people that you're either applying to or to the jobs that you're focusing on.
I think so. And the thing that I think is sometimes a bit overlooked as well, is a really basic thing, which is not just tailoring your CV for the role that you're applying for, but also tailoring it in tone and look and feel. Because sometimes a financial services CV, what will pop to a financial services recruiter in terms of look, is very different to what I'm looking for when I'm looking at TED. Because I want to see and feel that person at least has some aesthetic sensibilities. So even some of those things I think are important as well.
You've spent a fair bit of your career brand side, but you've also started out in agency as well. So my question is, how important is having experience across both agency and brand for anyone within their career for their own personal development reasons?
I love hiring people that have done both. And most of my briefs, particularly on marketing roles, will say ideally both. The old truism, I think, is true. You cut your teeth in the agency. That's where you learn. You learn to work at pace, accurately, with enthusiasm. But you learn the business. You learn the skill, the hard skills that are so essential, I think, as you move up through the ranks in agency life. On the client side, you learn a different set of skills. So, influencing, stakeholder management. How do you manage through a matrix? Budget management, people management, potentially more so. So it's very different in my experience. And, when they're added together, I think incredibly powerful. So one of the things I've done with team members I've had before who've needed some additional hard skills, I've sent them to our agencies on secondment for a few months, learn, just go and do some other stuff. So I think that can be really powerful, that combination.
A funny conversation we had leading up to today was we got into the topic of job title, and it's definitely something that I don't think is probably spoken about. It's something that most people like to say that it's not important, but deep down, I think we both agree that actually job title, it can be quite important to us. Like, what's your view on chasing a job title?
Yeah, I've done it, and not proud of it. It does matter to me, and it matters. I think you and I talked about it, but when you go home to your mum or your granny, more like, and say, actually, I'm a director now.
And they're like, of what? You're like, digital, and they have absolutely. Then you've got to try and explain what's going on.
Yeah. You sound, that's right, sell stuff. So yeah, it has mattered to me, and I suppose continues to matter. I think it's all. We care perhaps more than when we should about other people's opinions and social currency, and we use it, of course, in how we do our marketing. We know it's a kind of motivating factor. What I would say though, as you get sort of to this level, is reporting line is one of the most important things. So actually, what I'm particularly enjoying over my last few roles is being at the leadership table, reporting to a CEO. And actually, to work in a smaller business and be able to do that has been really very eye-opening for me, versus being in a big corporate. And, you can have an amazing job title in a big corporate. You can be a VP, but, actually, for me, that reporting line direct to a CEO is one of the things now that's really important to me. Not for glory reasons, but because it's easier to get stuff done.
There's also, there is that whole recruitment bias as well. Like we try not to, but when you look at a CV, you do look at a title and then you go, oh, they've done that. So whilst there is a vanity part to it, perhaps there is actually a rational part to it, which is, it does open up doors for you. It does give you a bit more influence. I've experienced it in the past as well, is that you change the job title and suddenly another door opens up and you can have a conversation and have a bit more influence, which is frustrating. But I guess hopefully it'll be quite interesting for people to hear that actually that inner want to go after a better job title is perfectly normal, and it's actually has lots of benefits, and it isn't something that we should potentially be concerned about or worried about or ashamed of.
No, not at all. One of the things I think though that candidates do need to really probe around is I see a bit of what would I call it? Role title inflation at the moment. So I'm seeing roles out there that are being called marketing director roles that are being paid, you know, £60,000, which probably isn't a marketing director level role.
Yeah.
So, you know, if the title's really important to you and the cash less so, you know, you're good to go on that. But it probably isn't, you know, the end point of a marketing director role.
I guess the key there is like fine to chase, but actually make sure that you can fulfill and you're still learning, developing, so that whatever title that you have, you're actually working on ability and being able to do the next role regardless. If you could give one bit of advice to someone who's starting out their sort of journey at the moment, what would it be?
I guess two things: technical skill, really, really important, particularly for marketers, and actually increasingly so across the board. So, you know, those harder skills around data analytics and finance are just going to become more and more important, increasingly so. You know, I was reading on LinkedIn the other day, it was like a long list of technical roles in marketing that didn't exist 20 years ago. You know, SEO specialist, like what the hell's that? So you know, the pace of change, I think, exponentially is going to be in the technical direction for many disciplines, and it's important to keep pace with that. Not learning to code when it was offered to me 20 years ago is the single biggest regret I have in my career.
Interesting.
That was foolish. And then I guess the second one, and I speak from personal experience here, is if you are in a business that likes you, if your boss likes you, and particularly if your boss's boss likes you, stick with it. You know, I've left two businesses where I was well regarded because I thought, oh God, you know, first time I got stuck in financial services, I don't want to do that. And it was a bad move. And then I left eBay, which is the second biggest regret of my career, and was probably the wrong move, although it turned out okay. So I think we're all hungry, and many of us hungry and ambitious when we're in the early phase of our career. But there's definitely something to be said for, you know, if you're winning, stick with it.
And if there are people looking out for you, then there's probably value to be coming in future years.
Agreed.
I actually want to ask one extra question, because interestingly, you got into marketing through a kind of like an insights background, and actually it feels like things are very much ramping up again in terms of insights being the focus. Like, can you tell me a little bit more about your early career in insights, what that involved, and how important you see insights being sort of in today's marketing environment, and whether people should be investing their time focusing on that specialism?
In terms of learning it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Very much so from the data analytics point of view. Again, I think, you know, data literacy is becoming just a prerequisite to being a decent marketer. You know, you just can't be without it anymore. I had a wonderful time in insights and analytics, and I learned a huge amount. One of them was actually a softer skill, really, which is how do you, I'm quite a nerd myself, and you know, would be very happy, and always have been really happy with an unmined data set and a clear afternoon, but that doesn't happen very much anymore. But the soft skill I really learned from that world was how to do all that stuff and then be able to distill it into, you know, 3-minute lift conversation, or the five bullet slide, or the beautiful chart, and, you know, job done. So the influencing stuff I loved. But it's an unusual route, and it's a shame. You know, I've got team members who've been in my world, insight people who've gone on to do fantastic things in strategy and marketing. So yeah, I think, again, back to recruiter bias, a lot of very talented individuals with those skills can get overlooked. And, you know, from my experience, the best way to make that pivot is within a company that cares for you and wants to develop you, because it's really hard to pivot skill or job kind of role if you're moving companies at the same time.
Makes total sense. Rhea, thank you so much for coming with some amazing takeaways there. I'm sure everyone's found that useful as well, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. For more content like this, don't forget to sign up to our newsletter, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on social.